we need to differentiate ourselves from the commercial space because we're not the ones who are abusing our clients. We're not the ones who are negligent. We are the ones who are white glove service. And that's why they're pretty strong, because the data just shows that people are happier in residential assisted living than they are in commercial spaces.
Welcome to the On-Site Podcast. We chat with contractors, educators, industry professionals about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So without further ado, let's fucking get into it. All right, welcome back to the On-Site Podcast. Today we have a friend of mine, Matt. Matt is from Arizona, correct?
Yes, sir. Phoenix, Arizona.
There we go. There we go. Long day already. So I'm excited, Matt, to dig into this. So Matt and I have been chatting and working together for just about a year now. He's got some pretty cool projects on the horizon, but I'm excited just to learn a little bit more about Matt, who Matt is, what's his business, what does he do, who does he serve, and all the things in between. So Matt, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome, Matt. So tell us, who is Matt and where are you from? What do you do?
Let's see. Okay. My name is Matt, as you know. I'm from Arizona. I'm born and raised Tucson, moved up to Phoenix in around 2011. And basically, I've been a licensed GC for a few years. I've been in construction for over 10. Basically, at this moment, I'm focusing on residential assisted living, residential multifamily, kind of focusing on those two specific assets. And my goal is to help build those type of assets for clients, customers, investors. And I think the big vision is essentially looking into more multifamily and trying to educate people how to essentially crowdfund their construction goals.
Explain a little bit more in detail. What are those types of projects? Because most people are, used to just like a typical remodel or bathroom or basement or kitchen or a new home. But what you're talking about is just a little bit different. So explain kind of what is that? What kind of project are you talking about here?
So in the United States in particular, you basically have a classification of residential called residential multifamily. And basically, it's where you have multiple dwelling units on one property. And it was designated by HUD 50 years ago or so, where the goal is to essentially have multiple families live in one dwelling, one parcel, essentially. So now, with the real estate market kind of cooling off, I think it's a kind of a great opportunity to re-educate people about this base asset class. So for instance, let's say if you have one family living in one unit and then like elderly parents live in another, and then you can rent out the other two. So like I'm trying to teach people how to build this stuff using like FHA loans, but particularly like most of the time, even though that's like my ideal client, most of the time it's investors who are really interested in that type of asset class. So
I'm familiar with like multifamily units, obviously, but then when you throw the assisted living, assisted multifamily element, I think it changes the dynamic. It's almost like it's a care home, but not a care home. Correct? Is that kind of what the vibe is?
Yes, it's definitely the vibe. So like, for instance, the big designation is residential versus commercial. So for instance, when it comes to assisted living, you have basically anything over 11 rooms is considered commercial. And that residential classification is extremely important because most of the abuse, negligence, and mismanagement happens on the commercial scale. So residential assisted living is more these primarily like luxury or more personal operators who are like mom and pop care homes, essentially. And yeah, and what's great about the residential, it's a lot more white glove service, even on the more affordable side. So the goal for Nimble LLC, my company, is to hit this like housing crisis like head on. Like that's like the big vision. And essentially, when we do, there's not enough housing for our elderly and our aging population. There's not enough housing for everyday Americans. So educating people about residential multifamily and residential assisted living as options is great because there's a bunch of loans out there that can get people involved into those type of asset classes and get everyone safe and housed, basically. So that's like the big vision.
Do you have to be like for the multifamily assisted living, right? Because I'm sure there's tons of grants and different types of opportunities that live within the government to help fund those types of projects, but like they don't need to be your parents. Like you could, as from an investment perspective, you could build, a multifamily assisted. And I'm going to go a little bit further. What is the average door count on one of these projects? Like how many private doors would there be? And is it private? Like, is it group setting? Is it more private and independent? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's more of a private setting. I mean, it's group because in the sense that you have multiple people living under one roof because it is one massive property. It's one massive house. But then you'll
But
have like,
there's not like a communal area, or maybe there is. Is there like a communal living
yeah,
room, communal kitchen?
yeah, absolutely. There's a communal living room. Like in the blueprint that I designed, it definitely has a communal area. And that's where, for instance, when you're supposed to be able to have visitors so that way, people and family can come check in. And so it is a little bit more, there's a lot more privacy involved in the residential because you're not sharing this massive compound. It's definitely a lot more personal in that way. But yes, there is shared living spaces essentially. So it is kind of in the realm of co-living in that sense.
Co-living. Okay. And how many like, what is the target number for how many, residents, I guess, so to speak? How many residents would be upholded, within one of these facilities?
So legally it's 10. So it's like basically
10.
you have like one person per room, for instance. So then, but even if you're like a married couple, that still like counts as 2 from my understanding. So that's like the main thing is that getting larger rooms. So if you have a larger master suite, that's where you can charge a higher premium because now you're taking up a space that someone else can't have, and you're definitely getting a lot more bang for your buck when you're having a larger room, more service. So that's kind of the luxury way. But the interesting thing about it too is if you were like interested to get started. So like as a contractor, one of the things I say like try to educate people on is you don't need a license if you have, for instance, you don't need to be a caretaker manager license. You don't need to have that if you're only going to house like 3 people. So if people who are interested in dabbling it, like, so for instance, if I know someone who's like a stay-at-home mom, for instance, and then the husband goes off and work, I'm like, hey, we can literally add 3 bedrooms onto your existing property. And then what we could do is literally do a white glove service. And then essentially you rent out 3 rooms. Yeah, you're going to have 24/7 care. And if you wanted, we can either start off with 3 rooms where you practice getting basically 2 married couples who are elderly. And then the 3rd room you can have for a caretaker on the night shift. So that way you can sleep during the night kind of thing. So I try to educate people on how we can get creative through construction on offering these types of things. And like literally almost like no one is doing this stuff because it's a lot. There's so much maneuvering, right? You got to get the architect, got to get the contractor, you got to make sure the funding is there, got to connect them with a lender. And it's tough because a lot of times the first people who are like the main point of contact are the realtors. But most realtors don't even hold their license for 2 years. So trying to get more people educated, and it's unfortunate because a lot of times like realtors are the gatekeepers to people who are interested in where do I find a property? And then the first person they think of is, oh, my uncle's a realtor or my brother's a realtor. And they don't come to contractors. That's where the problem is at the moment is they look as contractors as like reactive. Like for instance, I met an investor who bought a house with a realtor because the realtor said it was a good investment. And then, they come to find out that all the different
for
additions,
this intent, like for assisted living.
Correct. For this,
yeah, okay.
Correct. And they come to realize when they apply for the business license is, hey, there's like 1,200 square feet on this house that is not a part of the plans. So they did like an unpermitted addition. So now they have to come to us to get everything up to code. And that's the dilemma, is that if they just came to like essentially us during the BINSR process or the inspection process, now they're stuck with this property and now they have to come up with more funding before they can even get operative.
So the first point of contact is potentially a realtor? Is that the first point of contact?
Yeah, I think most investors and people who are interested in assisted living, for instance, I'm finding out that like, oh, they've already bought the property and now they're calling us like after the fact most of the time. So I think that's where
to do the build after.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it almost should be the other way around. Like they need to be coming to contractors first because we can tell you right away whether something is going to work or not.
Hey, we've got an ad here. Make sure to pay attention. What's up, guys? Are you a contractor or business owner looking to take things to the next level? Well, I've got something for you. The Elite Builder Society is a community that helps contractors grow and scale. For $49 a month, you can have access to 20 group coaching calls. Look, you're probably wondering, how am I going to show up to 20 calls, Brandon? That's a lot. And yeah, it is a lot for $49 a month. But every call is recorded so you can watch it at your leisure. But you get the best experience when you're live on the call with us. Okay, at the end of every webinar, there will be a Q&A where you can ask the industry expert questions that you can implement into your business. Look, if you're ready to take things to the next level for $49 a month, go to ebsworks.com and register today. I look forward to seeing you inside the community.
you're listening to this and you're an investor or a realtor or somebody that's looking to get into the assisted living multifamily type investment pool in the Arizona area, I agree with Matt that, in this situation, it's better to pair and build a bit of a war group together where you got the contractor there, you got the investor, you got the realtor, and you guys are all focused on, one mission, which is, compiling the right type of locations that are a good suitable fit for this type of application. And it sounds like it's very lucrative. Like it sounds like to the point where, you can almost take an existing property, reconvert that existing property into a assisted living, multifamily type group house, get government funding to offset the build cost, and then just straight recoup the capital from the investment. It sounds like one of the highest returns on investment. What does this look like? Like, let's say on a typical house, we're going to buy a house, right? We're going to do a rehab to the house to build it, to adjust to that kind of setting. And then we've got to obviously operate it. What kind of, like, if we're speaking to an investor right now, right? What does this look like from an investment perspective so they can understand how, profitable this could actually be for them?
Yeah, if they are selecting the right neighborhoods and doing the correct build out in like a more luxury form factor, then low side 7,000 even in Arizona. And if you're putting couples in there, now we're talking like over 10,000 easily, like per room. So per room. So like for instance, on that
per month or per month?
Oh, per month. Yeah. So per room per month. Yes. I would say per tenant, but like a tenant kind of is not the terminology. I feel like they want to call them like a resident because the goal is to, hey, we're turning this into your home. You're more than just a tenant kind of a thing. So yeah, easily over $7,000 per person per room. So, and especially if you go in the luxury market, oh my gosh, like it could be anywhere like 12 up. It depends.
So
like if you're in the foot,
if we just call it 10K per room, right? And the average room, what could the average property offer you for capacity? Like how many people could you put into it? How many rooms?
Let's see. If we were to do, let's say if we built a 6-bedroom property, for instance, and your goal was to get married couples in each, yeah, you're easily over like 15,000 per room, especially in the right neighborhood.
And is that an existing build or is that a new build?
It depends. I would say a new build for the most part, because there are existing care facilities, for instance. The dilemma, I would say, most of them are outdated. So now a lot of these current sellers are just kind of out of touch with what their property is worth because it's not updated. They don't have the right fire sprinkler systems inside of them. They don't have, But the good news, let's say if you're just like, you want to like maybe dabble in it, right? Or if you're a small operator and you're like, hey, what if we just did 3 rooms or you did 2 rooms with 2 couples or 3 rooms with 2 individuals and a caretaker. I think like if you go into that, you don't need a license and you can charge a premium because now you're essentially giving them a white glove family service, essentially.
Right. Are there organizations that allocate these couples or families to your housing? Can you like register your house on some type of platform where people can,
Absolutely. Yeah. There's organizations like in Arizona, for instance, there's a residential assisted living like membership group that they're kind of a lobby group, and it's called AHALA. And the reason why they are so powerful is because they want to create awareness for the public to let them know that, hey, we need to differentiate ourselves from the commercial space because we're not the ones who are abusing our clients. We're not the ones who are negligent. We are the ones who are white glove service. And that's why they're pretty strong, because the data just shows that people are happier in residential assisted living than they are in commercial spaces.
Right. This sounds like an incredible investment opportunity. Basically, for anybody that is in the Arizona area, I'm sure we could dig into this, and I'm sure Matt can provide you with a lot more context, but it sounds super lucrative. Basically, there are properties that exist in areas all the time that could take a rehab or a rebuild. You could dabble in this industry if you've got a little bit of capital that you want to invest. Matt can help you with, some of the credit options that exist, the different offerings that offset the cost of the build, and really make this, a really viable investment. And then you're also giving back, the elderly, giving them a safe, comfortable environment to live out the rest of their life. I think, that's one of the biggest things that, most people neglect to think about when they're, our age, is what's life going to look like, when we get older. My mom was getting older, and, that's just starting to arise with concerns about, what are we going to do with the future and where do we got to put her? And not that she's, old or immobile, but it comes really quick, and it comes without warning a lot of times, and life is I think, taken for granted. There's a lot of contractors, oddly enough, that I'm talking to that have lost their parents. And just recently, I was chatting with one of the contractors that we're working with, and he's up in BC and just lost his dad. Like literally, like him and I were just talking, and then the next day he lost his father. And life can be taken away in a moment's notice. And I think it's really important for us to, really just try to give the special people in our life a special place to live. And sometimes if we've got the capital to do so, it's up to us to take control of that and build into this. And Matt, you're doing the Lord's work by putting this out there and building these spaces for these people, because like if they have nowhere to live, comfortably, happily, can you imagine if that's how you wind down your life, is living in a in a big steel jungle with hundreds of other elderly people? It sounds like a bit of a party, right? But it's like going on a cruise ship that just doesn't end. And I'm sure that I'm sure that people, would like a little bit more personalized experience, so they're in control of that stuff. So I love what you're doing. We can talk about that all day, but I want to hear a little bit about you, your family, and maybe some of the challenges that maybe you faced, in your industry, and even potentially, if we have time, maybe talk about who's in Matt's little bubble, who's your family that supports you and cheers you on from the background.
Yeah, definitely. My dad and my wife have done an amazing job in being that unconditional support for me. And I know, to me, in some ways, like I've already hit the lottery in that regard. Like, I hear about contractors and how hard the contracting and building construction life is. It's a very taxing on our relationships and loved ones. It's taxing on our body. And so when you have that spiritual element where you have that support from your parents and even from your wife, especially, it's like, I can't be any more blessed in that regard. So I feel like that is my, in essence, my competitive advantage, which I do not take for granted. Having that level of support and love from them is huge. So for me, it's like, that's how I try to show up for my clients, is to come from that position of confidence, to let them know that, hey, listen, you're in good hands. And, as long as we try to stay in alignment with their vision and their goals and their budget, and like understand, like, that's how I'm doing it a little more personally. Now, it might come to haunt me in some ways, because it's like, I don't want my clients to be pulling on my emotional heartstrings, for sure, because I do have the skills and the talent to solve a ton of their problems. So it's like trying to find that healthy balance on being present with a client and meeting their needs, and also being firm in the fact that, hey, I'm doing this too because I love it, but I also am running a business, and so I think that's been really huge, to like get into the nitty gritty, disciplining myself to looking at the numbers and making a system. So that way it's like, we set firmer boundaries. And, I was listening to, I can't remember where I heard it from. Anyway, basically it was talking about boundaries. That's how boundaries are essentially should be treated like filters. So when we have, this is why I've been coming to coaching with you, is that if we create the right systems, that we're essentially creating the proper filter to let us know which clients, which projects, which programs work for these people. And it helps us differentiate more without getting so emotionally tied with clients who we know that aren't in it for us either, kind of a thing. Like, there is a personal touch when you're working with the construction business, and realizing that we should be finding clients who are excited to work with us. So
we talked about this on the webinar that I held the other day. And you're 100% right. Like I was out for dinner with my girlfriend last night, and we were just chatting about, clients, and she's in the service industry as well. And I think like, what we want, right? So the type of projects that you want are clear. Exactly the type of, grade A projects and clients that you want to work with. But sometimes along the way, you have to take some of these grade B and C and D clients or opportunities along the way. And what happens is, if the grade A client that you have, you can't promote it in a way that it actually amplifies and helps you grow your business, then you actually did all that work for nothing. Like, what is the point of doing work for somebody that doesn't support your business, doesn't support your growth, doesn't support your family? And so we were just talking about this. It's, it's crazy that you talk about that filtering. I think it's really important for us to be mindful and filter out projects that don't fill our bucket, even if it's on Avatar. Right? If you got a client that was like on Avatar, and let's say your pipeline's full, okay? Because you're going to take work when your pipeline's not full. So you're going to still take some of the C, D, B clients. Even if the A client, you're going to take the A client. You're going to take any client if pipeline's not full. But if you only are promoting D customers, you're only going to continue to get D customers, and so when you get that A customer, you have to understand that it's time to expose that opportunity so that other people can see, other A clients can see what you're capable of doing. And so I think it's really important that you filter what you take in, but it's also important what you filter on what you put out, right? It's important that you filter the product, the delivery of what you're actually building, because if you continue to, promote stuff that you don't want to do, you'll continue to get stuff that you don't want to get. And I think that that's a great, thing that you're super mindful of. I'm not saying turn away work, right? I'm definitely not saying to turn away work. I think a lot of people get hung up on that, where they get this ego mentality where they're like, I'm only going to do this type of project and I will not allow these other types of projects in. It's like, no, take the other projects to keep your pipeline full, but just don't promote them. Don't talk about them, because then you won't get more of those opportunities. Just use them to fill your pipeline. If you were a remodeling company, right, and you were like, I only want to do large main floor remodels, but you're getting bathrooms constantly. If you just keep posting bathrooms, you're just going to continue to get more bathrooms, right? Yep. And so same thing with you. What you're talking about, I think is a really unique industry. There's a lot of work in just educating people, but I think once you find a dominant force of investors that really want to get behind this for the right reasons, like that grade A client that wants to get behind it for the right reasons, I feel like, with your spirit and your dedication to that specific industry, I think you'll kill it, man. I know you've been battling at it and trying to, you're waiting on some city permits on a couple bigger projects, which is just like, it's just a never ending thing. I've got another guy I'm working with in Ontario, and there's all these regulations and laws, and they were just adapted to an existing product. So they weren't even firmed up. And so what happened was it just froze the entire operation of his business. And it's just crazy that, political elements like that can exist and really hold things up. I get it. Everybody's trying to, control everything. Everyone's in a fight for control and power. But, what you're doing is great. And, and I agree. Filtering your clients on both ends is super important.
What's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying this episode of the On-Site Podcast. So here's the deal. We want to grow this show and we need your help. It's simple. Pay the tax, share the show. That's it. Let's get back into it.
Matt, I know you have a couple projects that are just like on the table or progressing, waiting for permits. Can you share any of the details on any of those projects at all?
Yes. So one's an assisted living addition where they were taking previously an adult daycare, and they are converting it into a care home, and we're adding around 1,700 square feet, and we're putting an additional 4 bedrooms and 4 baths on it. Everything is great on it. It's going to be a really wonderful property when it's said and done. It's going to be the best in the neighborhood, basically. It gets me really excited once that property is like up and running. It's going to be a fantastic one to get in the portfolio, and it's going to be a great one in the community for sure. So I get excited about it. It's just this, like with the permitting process, it's astonishing because in Tucson, this one, it's considered a 100-year flood zone. So like statistically, once every 100 years, monsoon's going to have this amount of inches of rainfall. Therefore, we need to have a civil engineer to kind of determine like what kind of structural needs need to happen to the foundation and the addition and all this other stuff. And it sounds extremely elaborate and sophisticated, but it seems completely overkill since it's only a 1,700 square foot. We're not tearing it down and putting a 3-story compound or anything like that. So those are the kind of details that just like slow down the permitting process and bottleneck the whole housing crisis even more, because you had this motivated investor. They've been working very diligently with architect, being very patient with the civil engineers, being patient with the city, and it doesn't seem like there's zero reciprocity kind of a thing. So that's what, like, when you have a discouraged investor, you got to like try to stay on top of it. Remind them that, hey, the vision and the mission hasn't changed. The data shows that there is still a high demand for this, right? Like when the midst of their discouragement, you got to remind them like what they're in it for, kind of a thing. So. Right. Yeah, and I feel bad for the investors because they're the ones who are like, a lot of times, like, you sold them on this vision, you're helping them build it out, and here they are, all they see is just dollar signs leaving their bank. So it's like,
right, and time exhausting, right? Like, yeah, that's the other part to this too. You got to have the right type of investor that's really, motivated for the right reasons and understands that, you're advocating for them with all of this permit stuff. Like the permitting process is a nightmare in every city, state, country. It doesn't matter, and some places it's a little bit easier, in some places places it's a little bit harder, but it's still a process. And if you don't have the right people, helping you navigate those challenges with those city officials, you can really waste a lot more time. Like you could waste even more time. And so I think you're doing a good thing for those people. And I know that it's exhausting for everyone. Just stay the course and stay with the mission, because once you get a bunch of those under your belt, you'll have the right city officials in your pocket, be able to control that permitting process a lot more efficiently. Like reps improve over time. You know what I mean? And I know you've got a couple of these under your belt already, and got a couple more in front of you and a couple more that are on the table to discuss. And, who knows, after this podcast, maybe you'll have a couple more to discuss.
That'd be amazing.
Awesome. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to, if you've got capital to invest and you're in the Arizona area and you want to get into this, helping, the elderly out and giving them a safe place to live and continue the rest of their journey, I think, you definitely connect with Matt. Matt, if anybody wants to connect with you to talk about these opportunities, how can they find you?
Honestly, social media is a great way to cut through all the noise. My Instagram handle is at NIMMBOL. So Nimble. All right. If we're a little small operator, that's where I got the name from. And you can either find me at nimble.com as well. That's my website. And you'll be able to have all my contact information there, and you can DM me even. So
definitely connect with Matt if you're looking to, chat about the assisted multifamily, rehabs or remodels. Matt is a wealth of knowledge in this, got tons of experience, and he's dedicated his passion to focusing on this operation. He does remodels and all that kind of stuff as well, but I mean, this is kind of his space that he's really focused on, delivering the most value. And so, if you're looking for any type of project in the Arizona area, definitely reach out to Matt. He can help you with any of that stuff. Matt, this is a great conversation. Anything else that you're curious that you want to share with us, by all means, feel the platform's wide open. You can speak your mind. I'd love to hear, dude, if, you said you've been on your own for a couple of years. Prior to that, you were in construction for about 10 years. What did you start? What was the first kind of job? What did you start doing?
So I was a materials engineer. I got my
materials engineer?
A materials engineer. Yeah. I got my bachelor's degree in material science and engineering. I kind of regret it in some ways. Part of me wishes I got into civil engineering at the time, but I chose materials engineering because basically every single engineering field can be differentiated by what materials they use. So electrical, mechanical, civil, I mean, you could pretty much nail down which materials those fields are consuming. So I was absolutely fascinated. And originally I was going to the School of Hydrology, but then I found out all the devices that the hydrologists were using to create clean water were developed by materials engineers. And then I thought I was going to be working in the mines for Freeport down in Lake Chile. And then I ended up getting an engineering job at Intel. So, and then I was working on glue. I was basically gluing computer chips together. And then
no way.
Yeah, it was an interesting life. It was good, but it was funny because I worked. It's a 180 because I was working in like this clean room where I'm like head to toe covered, can't have any dust in the factory, to now like proud dirty job worker kind of a thing.
Right.
So
I love it, man. That's cool. That's a cool life story. Good transition. I mean, never heard of material engineer. So, I mean,
we're out there.
Got that.
Well,
yeah.
You're out 12 guys graduated from my class. Less than 700 students a year graduate with that degree.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. So, my son, he's getting into welding, and that's going to be his career path. And obviously a little bit of regret, probably, doing the material engineering thing in that direction and now landing where you are right now. But that being said, I really believe we all ultimately end up going down, an interesting path where we obtain life experience and we obtain life skills along the way. And sometimes they don't make any sense. Yeah. So I really think that this path that we ultimately, go down feeds us with different types of life experiences that really shape and form us. And so, you never know where the materials engineer portion of your life will take you. But I think at the end of the day, I think what's, really unique is that you've gone down that path and you've been able to focus on that. And now what you're doing with the assisted living, accessible living type of properties and those remodels, I think are really important to your community and to society. And so I commend you for what you've done and what you're doing for everyone. And I thank you for that. Matt, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time, energy, and the conversation. I look forward to continuing to working with you inside the Elite Builder Society. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please don't hesitate to go reach out to Matt. He was having some technical difficulties, so we had to cut him off there. But at the end of the day, if you want to connect with Matt, just go connect with him right at his website or Instagram at Nimble, or his website is www.nimbol.com, and he can help you with some direction on whether it's the investment side, whether or not you have a property that is feasible for this type of opportunity. It doesn't hurt to try, and I think it's really important that we focus on doing this for the community and for our elderly. So thank you so much. Until next time, we'll see you again.
All right, that concludes this episode of the On-Site Podcast. Remember, if you enjoyed this episode, please pay the tax, share the show. Guys, if you want to be a part of the Elite Builder Society, all you got to do is pay $49 a month. That's it. $49 a month. You get 20 group coaching calls every month. Okay? Go to ebsworks.com and register today. If you enjoyed the show, please pay the tax and share the show.